Okay, economic policy aside, domestic policy aside, foreign policy aside, malignant narcissism aside, we've been following the outlandish and bizarre behavior of Donald Trump for a couple of years now. If you've seen some of the interviews that I've done about this topic, you know that there are numerous serious mental health professionals in the United States who have identified that Donald Trump's mental state seems to be declining at a moderate pace. His speaking abilities, his ability to express himself dynamically and articulately, he was able to do this 20 years ago. Go back and look at interviews. He was able to do it even 10 years ago better than he is today. That ability has been notably declining for a period of time now that exceeds his presidency. It even goes back to the campaign a little bit. Some mental health professionals we talked to are calling it a pre-dementia state. Others are calling it subclinical cognitive decline that may not yet meet clinically diagnosable sort of levels. Some others are saying, no, this is actually clinically diagnosable at this point. Or there's kind of a mix here between a guy who is just in his 70s now and not in particularly good health, combined with personality disorders. However you want to sort of qualify it or quantify it, one of the signs of this sort of behavior includes Trump's circular speech, repeating the same words very often without sort of being able to snap out of the circle and make whatever point he has in mind that he's trying to make, being unable to fully express himself and actually carry through a point from start to finish. His "My Uncle Nuclear Weapons" Wharton speech is an example of that. Go back and look for it on YouTube if you don't remember that one. So what I have for you today is really strange video that is only raising even more concerns about this. This is new video from over the weekend. Donald Trump was trying to tell a story, I think, about how former presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama built parts of a bad wall, like a wall that's not good, on the Mexico border. And then Trump became oddly fixated on doors in the wall. And again, it's just anyone's guess what he's trying to say. He seems unable to snap out of it. Is Trump putting the doors in? Is he not? Are the doors good or bad, expensive or cheap? It's not clear what Trump is talking about, and he seems unable to even make a point.
You know, when you talk about previous administrations, so we have a stretch along the Rio Grande where, and you people know exactly where I'm talking about, it's about 38 miles, done by actually both previous administrations. It was sort of done as a combination of one going into the other. And it's a wall, not a good-looking wall, it's a wall. It's got 36 doors in it, big doors, very big doors. And they never put the doors on. So it's 38 miles with 36 doors that you can drive a truck through. There's only one problem, they never put the doors on it. So we're putting the doors on it, or even better, maybe not putting any doors. I said maybe you do it without the doors, because putting the doors on costs more than the property is worth. I'd rather give the money for the property and just say bye-bye or sell it to somebody on the other side. But, I mean, literally putting the doors on costs more money. I said, what's the property worth on the other side? Much less than the doors. These are doors with the hydraulic. They need hydraulic because they're so heavy, which is ridiculous in itself. But so that's the kind of thinking that went into this. So now we're filling up those big gaping wounds in this wall.
This is somebody who's in a fog. I mean, he doesn't know what he's talking about. A wall with 36 big heavy doors with hydraulics, which is ridiculous in and of itself. And as he says, the doors weren't actually put in. It's 36 doors you can drive a truck through, but there aren't doors. So he's putting them in, except maybe he's not, and maybe we give the money for the doors to somebody else. It's really important to understand. This is Trump off the cuff, okay? I get that he's awkward with the teleprompter, but this is what happens without one, and it didn't get any better during other parts of this speech.
I say, and this is our new statement, the system is full, can't take you anymore. Whether it's asylum, whether it's anything you want, it's illegal immigration, can't take you anymore. We can't take you. Our country is full, our area is full, the sector is full. Can't take you anymore. I'm sorry. Can't happen. So turn around. That's the way it is.
So again, another weird moment where he gets into these repetition comas. It's not clear what he's saying. The country's full, the area is full, the sector is full. This is not normal communication for a 72-year-old who is of sound mind. I'm not making fun of Trump. I think he's a fool. I think he is ignorant on almost every single political issue. I believe he's an embarrassment to the United States around the world. This is not about any of that. This is about possible cognitive decline that rises to the level of a diagnosable condition, period. It's not funny. It's not something that we should be making fun of. It's something that no country should have, a president who's cognitively declining and not able to think straight. And what would be great is if we could put partisanship aside for a second. I don't like his policies. People on the right do like his policies. This has nothing to do with policy. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't think he knows what he's talking about because he gets into these cycles where he's repeating the same words. He can't stop. He forgets what point he's even trying to make. And it's not the behavior of somebody who is fit to be president of the United States. And as we know, because of the uncontrollable leaks that come nonstop out of this White House, there are people working closely with him who have the exact same concerns. Let me know what you think is going on. I'm on Twitter at @Pakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show. Follow us there. And there is so much news from this weekend that I will be getting to. Glad you're with us today. I have some just absolutely delightful video to play for you today, which I really enjoyed watching. I think a lot of you are going to really enjoy it. And it's video of Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu playing Candace Owens' now infamous "Hitler wasn't actually that bad" comment to her face off of his phone during a congressional hearing. And there are so many stories here and so many angles that I want to talk about. But let me first remind you who the players are. Congressman Ted Lieu, of course, a Democratic congressman from California. Candace Owens is an unhinged, irrational Trump supporter who sort of came to prominence over something that she labeled Blexit, the idea of black people exiting the Democratic Party, which of course isn't working well and has been a wholesale failure since Republicans are worse for black Americans than Democrats, even though I would argue that Democrats also need to be doing more for black Americans. And black Americans aren't just pawns of the Democratic Party. They simply recognize that they would be worse off if Republicans got to decide policy than Democrats. So Blexit has been a complete and total failure. But regardless, Candace Owens is super well-funded, involved with Turning Point USA, often defended by Donald Trump's kids and by other prominent right-wingers. And supposedly I was actually going to have a debate with her. The original date that was set tentatively was, well, originally it was pitched as possibly happening at Politicon in October, last October in Los Angeles. That didn't happen. Then a third party that was organizing the debate pitched March 18th as, last March, by the way, this past a month ago, March 18th as a date. And then we were told that her camp is being a little bit more, it's become a little more difficult to actually finalize it. Then she blocked me on Twitter, and organizers are saying it's remaining difficult to finalize this debate, and I don't know what's going to happen with it. But that's Candace Owens, okay? She said not long ago that Hitler, wanting to sort of do his thing in Germany, to bring his vision to Germany, would have been one thing, and it would have generally been okay, but that the mistake Hitler made was going globalist, which was the wrong use of the term globalist anyway. Globalist means something else, but I think we understand what she meant. So for some harebrained reason that I can't even understand, that Candace Owens, who recently made those comments, was invited to testify before Congress on the topic of white nationalism. White nationalism. Now, I can think of no worse person to testify about white nationalism to Congress than perhaps, I mean, I don't even know. I'm having trouble thinking of who would be a worse person to testify on this issue before Congress. But in any case, Candace Owens was there, and Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu played this Hitler clip to her face, and it was just glorious. I'm going to play it for you, and he brilliantly points out, why is Candace Owens here? After playing the clip, he then asks another woman who is testifying from the Anti-Defamation League, full disclosure, my brother works for the Anti-Defamation League, whether that comment from Candace Owens that he played was disturbing. And if you check out the look on Candace Owens' face as Ted Lieu is playing this, she is furious, trying to contain herself, and it is just as good as I imagined it would be. Take a look.
In congressional hearings, the minority party gets to select its own witnesses. And of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. So I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist. But if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Hirschenoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?
It does, Mr. Lieu. I know that Ms. Owens distanced herself from those comments later, but we expressed great concern over the original comments.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, if Hitler wanted to just do his Jew-killing stuff within Germany, okay, now that's a plan. But once he goes beyond the borders, then he's a globalist, and that's not okay. Now, I have no reason not to tell you that Candace Owens, as was mentioned in that clip, has since distanced herself from the horrible thing that she previously said. But then what she did in this congressional hearing is play the race card. She said that by Ted Lieu playing only that part of her comment about Hitler, Ted Lieu is assuming that black people are stupid and won't look at the full context of her comment, which is insane because Ted Lieu playing this clip has nothing to do with specifically targeting black people who are watching the hearing, right? Understand what she's doing. She's playing the race card. She hates playing the race card or says that people shouldn't play the race card, but she's playing it herself. Ted Lieu plays a clip of her saying that the problem with Hitler was that he went global, that if he wanted to just do his vision within Germany, that would be one thing that would be okay. And then she says, by playing that and not playing the context, you are showing that you think black people are stupid and won't look up or understand the full context. What the hell is she talking about? It has nothing to do with black people, and this is literally what is called playing the race card. She and her side claim to be against it, and she is doing it here. And I know that there are people who are criticizing Ted Lieu. I saw some comments yesterday, got a couple of tweets and a couple of emails from people saying, David, this is Ted Lieu doing sensationalism porn by bringing this video in. It's a setup, it's staged, it's ridiculous, and he should be criticized for it. No, the outrageous thing is having someone like Candace Owens who made the comment at hearings about white nationalism. That's the disaster porn. I actually commend what Ted Lieu did here. Other lawmakers should do this, okay? When Republicans or Democrats, sometimes Democrats bring in wacky people to testify. This isn't partisan. When vile, disgusting people are brought in to testify who have a history of vile and disgusting comments like this, it should be, I don't want to say a requirement, but it should be common practice that members of the panels, members of the committees and subcommittees, call them out and say, the witness that the other side has brought here previously said this, and play it on your phone, put up one of those oversized, huge quote board cards that they do. And if it's Democrats do it, I don't care, okay? This is beyond partisanship for me. Republicans bring a lot of wacky people to testify. Sometimes Democrats also bring in horrible people to testify. Call them out and don't let them get away with this stuff. And the people that are upset about what Ted Lieu did, you're concern trolling, okay? I have very little time for you at this point in time. We have increasingly, with the advent of Trumpist American politics, with Trump and his kids and wacky white nationalists all over the place controlling policy and feeling fomented and reinvigorated by Trump's presidency, the problem is not that Ted Lieu played a clip during a congressional hearing. The problem is that people like Candace Owens and groups like Turning Point USA are getting a voice that they shouldn't have. The country is worse off for them having this voice. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to speak. This isn't a censorship thing. They should be seen for what they are, and no serious administration should say, here's an idea of who we want to invite to the White House. Here's an idea from Republicans of who we want to bring in to testify about white nationalism. There are serious people that can talk about these issues. White nationalists being reinvigorated and coalesced and catalyzed by the Donald Trump presidency is a real issue. The Anti-Defamation League is aware of it. Other groups that track hate are aware of it. The Southern Poverty Law Center, despite all of the trials and tribulations of the Southern Poverty Law Center, they have been following it. We don't need Candace Owens. Congratulations to Ted Lieu for doing this. I love it. And I look forward to hearing from you about it, which you can partially do by commenting on this story on our Facebook page at facebook.com/David Pakman Show. I've met lots of people in my life with obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of the things that they've all said when they talk about their affliction is that they can't really explain why they keep doing the rituals that they keep doing, whether it's turning on a light switch, turning it on and off 3 times before leaving the house, or having to be the last one to say bye during a phone call. There's an element of it that's beyond even their explanation. It's just sort of a reflexive thing that they do, or in the case of OCD, maybe something that they obsessively do would be a more appropriate way to say it. There's something very similar going on with the Republicans in the Senate and this Robert Mueller report. They keep blocking a resolution which would be non-binding, wouldn't even put a date certain as to when the Mueller report would have to be released. They keep trying to pass it. Democrats keep trying to pass it and have passed it in the House. And Republicans now 5 times have blocked it in the Senate. And they either can't or won't explain why it is that they're blocking it. They claim to be for transparency. They claim that the Mueller report totally clears the president. They claim that they're not worried about the contents of the Mueller report. And yet they have now for the 5th time blocked the resolution to at some point release the Mueller report. And when you ask them why, they don't even seem to know. Mitch McConnell has blocked this thing twice, at least already, says he wants to give William Barr time. Bogus reasoning because the resolution gives William Barr time. It doesn't put a time, a date, on when the report has to be released. Republican Lindsey Graham said he blocked the resolution because he wants more information about Hillary Clinton's emails. I'm not joking. That's the reason why, which makes no sense whatsoever. And he actually said, quote, "I'm making a political point by blocking it." Rand Paul, when asked why he is opposed to the release of the Mueller report, says he wants an investigation into how this Russia probe even started in the first place, which again is not a reason to block the release of the report. If you want an investigation into how the Mueller probe started, which we know, by the way, but let's pretend for a second Rand Paul doesn't know, that's a reason to propose your own resolution calling for that investigation if that's what he wants. It's not a reason to block this resolution. And once again, I go back to this question. Why not just play along with this resolution? It's non-binding. It doesn't put a specific timeline on when the report has to be released. It says that things that would be prohibited by law from being made public have to be redacted. So it doesn't prohibit all redactions. And there are a few different reasons why we may be seeing Republicans block this time and time and time again. The first is pretty obvious, which is the report actually is hugely damaging to Donald Trump, and they want to protect Trump, period. Pretty simple explanation. Possibility number two, they're worried that if redactions are made without a legal basis, in other words, if the report is released with a bunch of redactions, and some of those redactions were made for political reasons, not for legal reasons, those could be subject to unredaction by Democrats through a procedure that exists to do that. That's another possibility. Another real possibility in terms of what Republicans are doing here is that maybe there's stuff in the Mueller report, because it is more than 400 pages or around 400 pages, as we learned last week. Maybe there's material in there that if it's released closer to the 2020 election, it could be damaging for Republicans in their reelection campaigns in the House or in the Senate. Maybe they are exposed in some way. And what really doesn't sort of close for me on this, Pat, is that throughout the entire thing for 2 years, the same people who keep professing how innocent they are actively working to prevent an investigation that supposedly would find them innocent. They are working to prevent the release of a report which supposedly vindicates them. I've never seen people who are so innocent that are working so hard to prevent the proof of their innocence from getting out.
Well, I think they certainly know that they're not innocent and that this report won't totally vindicate them. I mean, they've had a couple weeks now to workshop an answer that would be suitable to the American public as to why we can't release the Mueller report. And they've come up with zilch, like, the classified information thing, that falls apart. The Hillary's emails, or why we have to focus on the oranges of the investigation, that falls apart too. They're left with nothing here. There's no reason to block the Mueller report.
We are very close to the first deadline on this thing. The first deadline is actually tomorrow, I believe, and I'll be traveling to a conference in Las Vegas. If something breaks tomorrow on this, Ben Dixon is going to be here to tell you about it. Otherwise, I'll be back on Wednesday or Thursday when we'll likely have news about whether that first deadline for the Mueller report's release to Congress has been met. My prediction is it is not going to be, and if it is, it will be just a comically redacted version that is going to immediately make Democrats say, this can't be the version that William Barr provides to us. I think that this has a lot of legs. I think this is going to continue being an issue for weeks, if not months. And there are still no straight answers from Republicans about what it is that is going on here. There are two stories that came together last night in this sort of explosion of incompetence and also impotence when it comes to some policy. So on the one hand, you have Donald Trump's constant turnover in his cabinet members, high-level staffers, just really, really high rate of turnover. Sometimes Trump forcing people out, sometimes Trump people deciding they can't work with Trump, and that's been one issue. On the other hand, you have the immigration fiasco, which involves the fake crisis at the border. It includes Trump's total inability to make good on even a fraction of the immigration promises that he made. I guess most comically, the border wall across the entire U.S.-Mexico border, which Mexico was going to pay for, which no one with any kind of common sense or rationality believed even from the get-go. Those have been sort of two parallel stories, but they came together last night with Donald Trump's Homeland Security Secretary, Kirstjen Nielsen, resigning as Donald Trump continues to say totally unintelligible things about the wall and immigration, which I'm going to get to a little bit later, as Donald Trump continued to call Kirstjen Nielsen early in the morning at home, asking her to do things that her best assessment were illegal. Donald Trump now pushing her out, and the explanation we've gotten so far is that her resignation was not voluntary, but that she didn't grovel or ask to keep her job either. She put out a statement late afternoon, early evening yesterday saying in part, quote, "I have determined that it is the right time for me to step aside. I hope that the next secretary will have the support of Congress and the courts in fixing the laws which have impeded our ability to fully secure America's borders and which have contributed to discord in our nation's discourse." The way it seems this thing went down, according to the New York Times yesterday, is that she had a meeting with Donald Trump at the White House, And as far as she knew, the meeting really was to figure out a plan, but clearly it didn't go well. CNN saying she didn't resign willingly, but she also wasn't groveling to keep her job, as I mentioned. So here's the chaos that this is all sandwiched between, which you really need to understand in order to get the context in which all of this stuff is happening. Donald Trump nominated Ron Vitiello to run ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and then very quickly withdrew the nomination because he decided he wanted someone tougher than Ron Vitiello. Total chaos. Trump went on a completely unintelligible rant about the number of doors that Obama and Bush didn't put in some areas of border wall, which Trump maybe is going to put in, but maybe not. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to play the video for you a little bit later. Trump, as I mentioned, has been calling Kirstjen Nielsen early in the mornings at home to tell her to do aggressive things, including certain things that are illegal, like, for example, blocking or not allowing requests for asylum at the border, which it's just against the law. And Kirstjen Nielsen, as extreme and outrageous and reactionary as she is, recognized that those requests would violate the law if she actually did it. And it's important to note that normally when the Department of Homeland Security Secretary resigns, the deputy DHS secretary would take over, except there's no DHS deputy secretary. So instead, the Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection is going to take over for now, complete and total disarray. And adding to this kind of comedy of errors and surreal nature of this farce, there are reports that the person Trump is thinking about nominating to replace Kirstjen Nielsen is former Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, who is most well known for wanting to make oral sex illegal in the state of Virginia. That's the guy that, rumor has it, Donald Trump is considering nominating to replace Kirstjen Nielsen. So this is one of those which is worse, the cure or the disease sort of situations, because on the one hand, Pat, Kirstjen Nielsen is a completely disgusting conservative reactionary on immigration. It's good that she's out, but Donald Trump wants to put someone in who's even more disgustingly reactionary, and he may actually get it. And this is a pattern we've seen before, Pat. We saw it with Mike Pompeo replacing Rex Tillerson. We saw it with Jeff Sessions being replaced by William Barr. I mean, listen, Jeff Sessions is a horrible racist ideologue, but at least he realized he had to recuse himself on Russia. Trump replaced him with a guy who's part of the cover-up of the Mueller report. So I don't know what's worse. Again, the cure or the disease.
Yeah, and remember, Kirstjen Nielsen was perfectly fine with going along with the policy that ICE would separate children from their families. She didn't protest then. She didn't announce a resignation. Maybe Trump demanded something of her that was even worse. I mean, that's what this kind of suggests. And I'd have to imagine that her replacement is going to be even worse than she was. Going along with a policy like that, who knows?
Yeah, and like I said, we know what he requested. He was requesting that she, as policy, stop accepting asylum requests at the border, which she felt and lawyers believe is illegal and against the law. So certainly was, as we mentioned, asking for things that are far worse that we know of, and potentially even more that we don't. So she was horrible, more than likely will be replaced with someone who comes in and is just willing to do Trump's bidding. We've seen that with Mike Pompeo. We've seen it with others. People leave who are horrible, but then they're replaced with others who are completely subjugated by Trump and willing to do his dirty work, even if it crosses the ethical, moral, or sometimes even legal lines. So who are we going to see ultimately replace Kirstjen Nielsen? We don't know. But complete and total disarray around the continuing fiasco that is the Trump immigration, not even policy, it's like failed policy, or policy that doesn't actually come to be despite Trump's best wishes or most sincere wishes. I absolutely love this clip that I'm going to play for you next here. I'm going to play for you video of a 23-year-old absolutely crushing a Fox News so-called reporter so hard that you can visibly see the Fox host unsure what to do or how to react. He is reduced to sputtering and repeating the same things over and over again. This happened a few days ago, but someone just sent it to me yesterday. We've seen this type of thing happen before. One time I recall is when right-winger Steven Crowder did a stunt where he goes to college campuses and encourages random people to, quote, change his mind. and this left-leaning sort of socialist type sat down and just destroyed Crowder, and Crowder didn't know what hit him. He looked punch-drunk almost. This is very similar, okay? The topic here is the Green New Deal. Fox News sent this mush-brained reporter, Todd Pirro, to ask people, how are we going to pay for the Green New Deal? And he happened to sit down and talk to 23-year-old Jack Vandalove in a diner in Missouri. And Vandalove started rattling off correct, precise, and pithy rapid-fire responses, and Pirro was visibly shaken from it, able only to repeat his same questions over and over again, time and time again, and repeat Vandalove's answers back to him. Let's take a look at this just beautiful backfire of the Fox News on the street sort of narrative crafting interview that they like to do.
Jack is an info specialist, and he really wants Howard Schultz to talk about climate change, specifically the Green New Deal, which you support. Why do you support it?
Yeah, it's really important we keep below 2 degrees Celsius of average warming. Otherwise, the consequences are going to be devastating.
How do we pay for it?
Yeah, how do we pay for World War II? At the end of the day, when something is this important, our economy is going to suffer if we don't pay for it.
Okay, but you do agree with the sentiment that this is as big a deal, climate change that is, as World War II.
Yeah, I mean, a little over 400,000 Americans died in World War II, and climate change is killing 150,000 people per year at least.
Okay, let's talk about the money, because that's a huge part of this. How are we going to pay for it?
Yeah. So during World War II, for one thing, the government just pushed some of the cash up front and raised some tax on some folks. But at the end of the day, it stimulated the economy so much that everyone benefited.
Okay, so to review, you are in favor of raising taxes in order to support the Green New Deal.
If that's the optimal solution the economists sort out, I'll go with that.
Jack, thank you for your time. And finally...
Quick, get me some guy in a MAGA hat to talk about bringing back coal or something like that. This guy is off script. Truly well done by 23-year-old Jack Vandalove. I completely commend him here. And the funniest part about this is that the answers he gives are really, really simple. We've got to take care of the planet and stop ruining it. And the question of money is never a question when it's about wars or weapons. We have money. It's just a question of priorities. And Todd Pirro is sort of out of his league here. He has nothing prepared. He can't even fall back on some weak and flaccid, oh, but what about inflation sort of thing. And he just repeats, so you're okay raising taxes to pay for it? And of course, at that point, Vandalove's got him in his hand. And this is not about the specific provisions of the Green New Deal or whether it's all doable in 8, 10, or 12 years. This is a bigger issue. And the issue is the discussion about how to pay for it is a misleading discussion, and it's a hypocritical discussion. It's misleading because, number one, it doesn't deal in reality with how government spending works. And number two, it ignores the negative externalities of not dealing with our dirty energy usage. And then it's hypocritical because the right only asks about how to pay for it when it's something that they don't want, when it's wars or missiles or tax cuts for the rich. We just do it the same way that we could do it with the Green New Deal. And when young people call into the show and ask me, hey, David, how do I better engage in arguments and debates with people who disagree with me? I talk about, well, you've got to be prepared. It's good to understand the other side's views as well as you do your own. The explanations don't have to be complicated, but they have to be real and they have to work. In this case, Vandalove was prepared. Todd Pirro was definitely not prepared. And really importantly, Vandalove was not only prepared with the what, but with the how to say it. He knew that in this format, you need quick, snappy, pithy, and concise statements, and he had them ready. And lots of people have the knowledge that Vandalove has. They know the facts. They know the truth about the Green New Deal. But when a Fox reporter shoves a mic in your face and gives you 50 seconds, you aren't always ready to express it so clearly and concisely the way Vandalove did. On both counts, substance and delivery, Jack Vandalove crushed it, and I congratulate him, and just absolutely a pleasure to watch.
The last segment, we talked quickly about Kirstjen Nielsen being fired, Stephen Miller's cruelty being the point. That's what he dreams about, being cruel at the border, and Donald Trump. But we briefly mentioned the illegal actions that the president was asking border agents to carry out. We briefly alluded to it, but I want you to take a look at this video of acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney as he makes it clear that the president is going to break the law in another way.
They knew they're not going to get these taxes. They know what the law is. They know that one of the fundamental principles of the IRS is to protect the confidentiality of you and me and everybody else who files taxes. They know that. They know the terms under law by which the IRS can give them the documents. But political hit job is not one of those reasons. So they know they're not going to get it.
To be clear, you believe Democrats will never see the president's tax returns?
Oh, no, never. No, nor should they.
Okay, so Mick Mulvaney has made it clear that the president, despite Congress asking for the president's tax returns in a very formal and illegal fashion, that the president will never turn over his tax returns. Now, you can debate about what's going to turn up. Is there anything in there that's substantive? Are the Democrats just playing political games? You all can debate that as much as you want. What's important here is for us to realize that we have a president of the United States who's willing to look at the law and simply say, I'm going to ignore it. The request that was made, it was made last week by the House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal. He formally requested it he was citing an old IRS code, but it's legal nonetheless, which gives the chairman of the House and Ways and Means Committee the ability to request the IRS turn over tax returns for basically anybody. Now, you can argue whether or not you think that code is legal or whether it's appropriate or whether it should be overturned, but rather it is legal. And so he's using the law to make a formal request of the IRS, and the IRS actually has until tomorrow, the 10th, to respond. Now, this doesn't mean that Trump can't challenge this. Trump can challenge this in court. Trump does have the ability to push back against this. But for Mick Mulvaney to go out and simply say, they're never going to get it, despite the fact that there is an IRS code that allows a House Ways and Means Committee chairman to request this tax return, shows you just how unlawful this administration really is. And quite frankly, how happily they are about being able to just do whatever they want to do, and the belief that they are above the law. This is very clear. And former Attorney General Holder, sees it much the same way. He said on yesterday via Twitter, he said, quote, "Really? Two questions in reference to Mick Mulvaney." He said, what is he hiding? And on exactly what basis is the Trump administration going to lawfully not disclose the tax returns in response to a legitimate congressional request? This is a direct affront to the rule of law. Serious. Precisely the case, right? When you couple this with the illegal, when you couple the fact that Trump is going to ignore the request of Congress, right? Mick Mulvaney, the chief of staff, right, saying that they're never going to get his tax returns. When you couple that with the fact that Donald Trump just last week was asking agents at the border to directly break the law, then you understand that we have a president who is lawless, who believes he's above the law, and believes that all of this infrastructure, all of this bureaucracy, everyone who works for the federal government works for him and not for the laws of the land. And that is the perfect combination to see not only atrocities, but to see the overturning, to see the undermining of our nation in a way that we haven't seen in a long time, in a way that we've never seen. Of course, the Civil War comes to mind. However, this is coming directly from the president of the United States. And while a lot of this can be dismissed as, people would want to dismiss this as hyperbole, it's the little things, man. It really is the little things that if Donald Trump was able to get these border agents to break the law in this manner, right? If he's able to look at Congress and say, I'm simply going to ignore you, those things, first of all, they're not little, but even if you disregard them as being, insignificant, then you cannot deny the fact that they add up to the possibility of us undermining our government in a way that we've never seen, right? When you have armed forces, so to speak, who are willing to ignore the law of the land and simply do what the president says, that is a recipe for disaster. Now, I want to read a quote. Here's a couple of quotes from CNN so that you can get the full breadth and depth of what the president was asking at the border. And then I want you to compound that. I want you to sit that side by side, juxtapose that to what the president is saying through Mick Mulvaney in terms of, I'm just going to ignore the Congress. The president told agents via CNN not to let migrants in. Quote, last Friday, the president visited California where he said, we're full. Our system's full. Our country's full. You can't come in. Our country is full. Why? What can you do? We can't handle any more. Our country is full. Can't come in. I'm sorry. It's very simple. Behind the scenes, two sources told CNN the president told border agents not to let migrants in. Tell them we don't have the capacity, he said. If judges give you trouble, say, sorry, judge, I can't do it. We don't have the room. After the president left the room, agents sought further advice from their leaders, who told them that they were not giving them the direction, and if they did what the president said, they would take on personal liability. You have to follow the law, they were told. This fascinating. I mean, look at the mindset of the president of the United States. He literally told them to go to a judge. If you get in trouble, I want you to break the law. And if you get in trouble with the judge, tell the judge I said that we're full and we can't come in. It's mind-boggling that this is okay to a certain percentage of the electorate. It doesn't blow me away anymore that this is who Donald Trump is. It does not blow me away that this is where we've gotten to in this country. What blows me away is how we got here, and the fact that the people who supported Donald Trump can look at this and say that it's okay. You know why they can look at this and say that this is okay? Because they're loyal to Donald Trump and not the United States of America. This is as good a place as any. There's a clip of a documentary of Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon is at a rally, and there's a lady who stands up in the crowd, and she precisely says that she never thought she would want a dictator, but if America did have a dictator, she would want it to be Trump. Listen in.
Can you hand the mic to the woman in the back here?
I just want to say this.
Yes, ma'am.
Never in my life did I. I would just like to.
I tell you what. We need one more question. Can you hand the mic to the woman in the back here?
I just want to say this.
Yes, ma'am.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator, but if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
It's unbelievable. And it shows you the power of the cult of personality. It does. It shows you how tenuous American democracy is in general, right? How democracy can lean towards a strong man. It can lean towards dictators. It leans toward hyperpartisanship, which pushes people into corners so far and so wide that they will swear allegiance even to the point of undermining the nation, right? They will swear allegiance to a dictator. They will swear allegiance to their political figure. It just shows you how tenuous and how much democracy can hang on by a thread, especially when you have a segment of the population who can be so easily driven into this fury that they're willing to turn over all legality, their rights in the Constitution over to a person like Donald Trump or over to anybody, period. It's absolutely asinine. I'm trying to explain it and explain it without being so bombastic about it. But this is madness. And you have a segment of our population who still today can look at the president telling Border Patrol agents to break the law, who could look at Congress and say, I don't care what you say, I'm going to do what I want to do. And then not only are they not offended by this, but they sit back and say, yeah, that's our dude. That's our guy. That's exactly the kind of leader we want. In fact, if we're going to have a dictator, we will want it to be Donald Trump. Yeah, man, listen, I'm going to participate in the Democratic primaries, but whoever wins the primaries, we better get out there and vote all of these people out of power. Because if we keep empowering people like Donald Trump, you see the madness that is driving his supporters, and they don't care how far he goes. There is no limit. We used to think that he could get it. Well, actually, I'm sorry. It is actually true. what they said. He can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue in New York City, and his supporters, that 30-some-odd%, a huge percentage of the voting electorate, still will support him.